Hi, welcome to Chad's Silversmithing. Today I thought I'd do something a little kind of simple, but also kind of a fun technique. I'm going to use my rolling mill to impress some texture on both sides of some links for a bracelet. And I've done this once or twice before, and it usually comes out kind of nice, and so I thought I'd show you how to do it. Before we get to that, I want to thank some groups of people. My patrons over on Patreon are my core group of supporters, and I really value their support. Not only have they created this wonderful environment over there where we can all kind of exchange ideas and resources and things like that, they provide me with some financial support, which keeps me running here. So thank you for that. I have some new ones here. We have Laura Jane and Kelly both signed up. Thank you for joining. I think you'll find a great group of people over there that you can interact with and get to know. So thanks for that. The other group are my YouTube subscribers, and we passed 25,500 just recently, which is amazing. Thank you for that. In my wildest dreams, I never ever thought I'd have that many people watching my videos, but I do appreciate it. I love the nice comments that you leave. I appreciate the input and the constructive criticism, and I also appreciate you sharing your knowledge. That's really nice and helps me to become a better silversmith, so thanks for that. I do also appreciate the financial support. The buy me a coffees, the super thanks, buying stuff on my merch store or my ebooks. Those things all keep my channel sustainable, and I couldn't do it without your help, so thank you. All right, well, let's get started on this chain. So this is one of my design ideas sketchbooks that you can get on my merch store. This particular model has a gauge to inches to millimeters conversion chart, which I use pretty frequently. I find it pretty useful. Some of the other ones have different charts on the back or metalsmithing information that you might find useful. The real key for me is the dot matrix in the background here, because I have trouble drawing symmetrical pictures myself, drawing not being my primary skill. And so I find that really useful, and it's a great way to keep track of your projects. I filled up 4 of these, I think, since I started the channel, and it's a nice way you can go back and look at how you did things if you want to revisit it. So this is today's project. Like I said, it's going to be kind of a beginner-ish project, I think. It helps if you have a rolling mill for this one, because we're going to texture using some texture plates to put a texture on this side and the opposite side of some of the links here. These middle ones I'm going to do just plain, I think, but these ones I'm going to impress a texture into them. So we're going to use 14 gauge round wire, and we'll make all these links first, and then I'll show you how I'm going to roll them through the rolling mill. I may not make you watch me make all of the links because it's going to be repetitive, but then at the end we'll put a little shepherd's hook kind of clasp on it. So it's a good beginner chain project, I think, and not too difficult. So let's get started on that. First, let's find some 14 gauge round wire. If you're interested in my setup, my torch, and the solder that I use and everything, there's a little bit of information about that right there. And I just put a fresh tank on my torch, so it's going to have a nice hot flame. My other one was getting a little bit weak. So I'm going to start by cutting a piece of this off here, maybe a foot long. I think I'm going to use my bell making pliers here, and maybe make the links around this biggest cylinder on here. That should make a pretty good size link. I'm just going to make a little spring out of this, using that size, and then we'll cut some links off, and I'll show you some tricks for making them symmetrical and everything. I'm not sure how many links I'm going to need. These are not going to be exactly the size. I used a little template to draw these, so they might be a little smaller. But we'll do the same basic idea, just that may not be the scale. I'm post-migraine headache today, so I may not be as sharp as typical, if I'm ever sharp. But so if I say something weird, that's probably why. So I'm going to cut these off. You can use your saw or whatever jump ring cutter you use. I'm just going to With mine, I'm going to use these flush cutters that I use all the time. They cut flat on this side, but not on this side. And so I snip off the little beveled end, flip it around, and that leaves a flat end on both sides then. Well, before I cut too many more of them, I'm going to make sure that I like the way the size comes out. So I'm just going to open it up a little bit, give it a couple strokes with the file, and then we'll solder it closed. I find when I'm closing up links like this, it helps to have two pairs of pliers, so you can push them past a little bit and pull them back. That way it has a forward pressure. Whoops. For when you go to solder them. So if the metal relaxes, it will maintain a close connection there, and you won't have a funky solder joint. Can't have you having funky solder joints. What would your friends say? Okay, so we got a little solder joint right there. I'm just going to pick solder these. You could just lean a little piece on there. I do pick soldering for a lot of stuff. If you're interested in finding out how to do that, I have a good video up there. It's one of those skills that kind of makes you able to do a lot of stuff you couldn't do prior to learning how to do that. Hard silver sheet solder melts at 1450 degrees Fahrenheit, or flows at that temperature. And that's what we're going to use. That's what I use for most things, honestly. When you're soldering links like this, you want to make sure both sides of that gap reach that temperature, so you get a strong connection. If one side reaches it but the other side doesn't, sometimes it flows and looks like it's made a good connection, but when you put some pressure on it, it breaks. That means it's called a cold solder joint. And that means one side didn't quite reach temperature, so it didn't really make a good bond. I used to just hand shape these when I was doing links like this, but somebody introduced me to these kind of, I don't know what you call them, but they're, I did know what you call them, but I forgot. So we're going to slide this on here. I'm going to open it up just a little bit. You just squeeze to open it. Put the solder joint off to the side like that. Give it a little squeeze. I'm going to move it down to the next one because I want to use that one for the size. We'll try and get a pretty decent oval kind of shape like that. If there's any kind of weirdness, we can always also round it out a little bit with these. Now, honestly, these make kind of squared off links. I like them to be a little bit more elongated, so maybe we should try and pull them a little bit higher on the top one. What do you think? And then maybe flare the centers out a tiny bit. You know, this is a good point if you have any kind of messiness where your solder joint is. Smooth it out a little bit. The nicer you make them at this stage, the nicer your outcome will be, probably. That looks pretty good, so I kind of like that shape. We'll kind of go with that. Before I roll them through the rolling mill, I'm going to pickle them to get rid of some of this oxidation. But I'll make one or two more on camera here before we do that, and then I'll take a little break while those are pickling, and I'll roll them through the rolling mill. good thing about doing these kind of chains is if you have a bad solder joint or something, when you go to stretch it, that's when you'll find out. I'm also going to flatten these out. Well, I guess I'll flatten them out when I roll them through the rolling mill. But, alright. So I think those are good. I can throw those in the pickle. And I'll just keep making them. So I'm back. I got one of the rings that's been, mostly pickled up decently. And this is the texture plate that I'm going to use. You can get these from a number of places. They're made out of brass, and they have these pre-printed textures in them. You can also, they have those laser printers now that you can print cardboard pieces, and that would work as well. Anything with a texture that's flat will work. But in order to get it on both sides, you can't roll it through twice because it'll flatten it out against the rolling mill. So you have to do both sides at the same time. And so what I've done is I've folded a piece of this in half, and so theoretically I'm just going to drop it in there, and I've see if we can get a good impression at that distance. I played with it a little bit earlier to see if I'd get the right height, so you'll have to mess with it a little bit until you get the look you want. So let's let that out of there. We'll see how it looks. So we'll get that in focus. It's got kind of a nice texture on it now on both sides. So we'll do that a few more times. All right, let's do a few more. That turned out pretty good. Okay, well, I'll be back in a little bit. Funny story, I'm doing this the second time that I've done it tonight because I didn't have my camera pointed in the right direction. So what I did was I took a piece of the 14 gauge round here, and I used I think this is the 4th largest cylinder on my bail making pliers, and I did the same thing I did before. It's just going to make a smaller ring. And then we just cut them off the same way we did before. Now, and one of the things I talked about while I was doing this was when I was a beginner, I used to really worry a lot about soldering the individual links together when I was trying to do the final soldering of them into a chain. And on smaller chains, it's pretty easy to do that. This one is not particularly small, so it's not going to be too hard. And you can probably get by with hard silver solder because really, since solder really flows best when the entire piece is up to temperature, since we're just soldering it to itself here and the other pieces are separate pieces, we can focus just the heat on this one piece and get that to flow, and we probably won't bring the neighboring ones up to soldering temperature. So, but if you're new to this, you might want to go ahead and just use like a medium or an easy paste solder or something to solder these ones until you have a little bit more experience. That might make it easier. So I need to make some more rings here, and then I'll be right back. Okay, so I have a bunch of links here, and I have a bunch of little links as well. And I think it'll be about the right length once we put them all together, but we'll see. I can always make an additional link if I want to log it. I measured this one out to be, let's see, what was it? Almost 200 millimeters. That'd be like 190 or 19 centimeters, I guess. In inches, be more like it's 6.5 inches maybe, roughly. So let's start hooking these together. So I'm going to start. I got one hanging off the end here that we can hook the clasp through. So let's close that one up. I find the nicer you get them lined up when you're doing this, the nicer your overall effect will be at the end. So, again, you could use them, if you want to use hard solder for all of it, you could use hard paste solder here if you want. Or you could do what I'm doing and just kind of pick it on there. There you are. Alright. Let's hook two of these guys. And sometimes, in order to keep the heat isolated from the other ones, I use a third hand and just kind of drape this from a third hand. That works pretty well. You can also, as it gets longer, you can cover it with a piece of like magnesia block or a kiln brick or whatever to prevent the rest of it from getting very hot, and just work on the ring that's sticking out from underneath it. That works pretty well too. So let's try the third hand. See how that goes. If you're doing the third hand, you want to approach it. Let's set that on something. You want to approach the part you're soldering with the heat from the side. You don't want to be pointing downwards, because then you'll reflow those ones down on the bottom. So you really want to keep the heat focused on this top ring. Okay, got do another 2 rings. This one of these. Close that up. There's a paper towel over there that I'm going to catch on fire if I'm not careful. Certainly wouldn't be the first time. Always be kind of situationally aware of what's around your pad. Nobody wants any table fires. Unless you're feeling adventurous. Okay, I'll do one more, and then I'm going to do the rest off camera so we can do the clasp at the end, and then I'll polish it. So I think there's a lot of variations you could do with this type of thing too. I thought about doing a different pattern on either side, or doing the central rings in a different pattern. You know, you could do a different shape of rings. Like I made these kind of like elliptical. You could make them more oval or more angular or whatever. You can make this particular chain look different in a lot of ways and come up with some pretty pleasing ideas, probably. That's one of the reasons I like making chains, because you can make them just a little different and they might look totally change one aspect of them and they look completely different. So it's kind of fun when you can do stuff like that. I really do find making chains sort of relaxing because it's repetitive. You don't have to think too hard. It's nice to fall into things and turn your brain off and just do something. It's kind of self-care to do stuff like that because the world is so chaotic. You gotta lose yourself in something once in a while or you'll lose your mind. Okay, well, I'm going to lose myself in this for a few more minutes off camera, and then we'll come back and we'll put a clasp on it. So, be right back. Okay, I got it all strung together. It's pretty close to the right length, so I'm going to call it good. And I had a little piece of 14 gauge round sitting over here that I cut off from making loops. So I'm just going to use that for a bail. Or just make a little shepherd's hook kind of bail. So pop it on there. Oop, there we go. Just going to close that up. Sometimes I ball the ends of these up before I make them. I'm not going to do that on this one, I don't think. Or maybe I will. Should we try it? Let's see. I've never tried to do it after I've already done this. It would be a good experiment. Can we do it? Let's see if we can do it. I bet we can. Let's put this off out of the way. Have this hanging down. If I just heat that, let's see if we can get it to ball up. Although we should get it to be about the right length first, probably. I just got excited to do an experiment. Could you tell? So ideally, it's somewhere about right in here. We'll ball it up a little bit. We'll get it a little hot, but then we'll kind of focus on the bottom there. Let the ball up a little bit. Yeah, a little bit. So one of the things after it's all pickled and I'm getting ready to polish it, oops, I'll likely take this and using my chasing hammer. Where did you go, chasing hammer? I'll likely spend some time flattening. I don't want to do it while it's got all these oxides on it because I'll pound it right into the metal there and it'll be really hard to get off. And so let's pickle it for a while, and then I'll get that all ready and hammer that, and then I'll polish it, and I'll show you the rest. One thing to note about polishing chains, it can be a little bit sketchy, especially if you're new. You can tumble polish chains, but again, tumble polishing doesn't really remove scratches or anything, so that won't give you a super high shine. Until you've had a little experience, I would ask for someone who had some more experience to help you polish the chain, just so you don't hurt yourself, because you worry about a floppy part of the bracelet getting caught on the wheel and yanking your hand in or wrapping around a finger and hurting your finger. So you need to really contain everything very carefully when you're polishing it. So until you have some more experience, I would be a little cautious about that. But, all right, so I'm going to pickle that, and we'll come back and I'll show you the final product. So I have a final product here, and I think it turned out pretty nice. What I did on the polishing to preserve as much of the pattern as I could is I used a knife edge blue fine polishing wheel on my Dremel to kind of hand shine up everything, and then I took it out to my big polisher and used Zam for a quick once over of everything to give it some shine. So. And I think it worked out okay, and I didn't remove a lot of the pattern, which is something that plagues me occasionally. So, put that on, and then I'll just be going on just like that. So, I made kind of a dainty one, I guess. You know, you can make it as long as you need it to be, but I think it's a pretty design. So tell me what you think. Tell me what you do different. Any tricks or secrets you have for doing chains. I'm always interested to hear other people's ideas. So tell me what you know. All right. I'll get some better pictures and put them at the end. All right, well, that was a textured link chain. It's kind of a fun project. I enjoy doing chains myself. If you enjoyed this as well and found it useful, I'd love it if you'd hit the like button. That really helps to get my channel promoted, and I appreciate it. I'd also love it if you'd visit my main channel page and check out some of my other videos. I have 560 some now. I've been doing 3 per week for about 4 years, so there's quite a bit of content there. I think you're likely to find at least 1 or 2 other things you'll find useful or enjoyable. So whether you're a beginner or someone who's more advanced, there's lots of different content over there. I think you'll find some fun stuff. So I hope you find it valuable enough to decide to subscribe to my channel. There's no cost to subscribe, and it helps my channel, so thanks for that. The other thing is, visit my video description down below. There's information about this video, including materials and things like that that you need to do it. There's also some important links. There's a link to my Patreon if you want to find out more about that nice community over there. There's multiple tiers of membership, the lowest being getting rid of the YouTube ads, and then from there on we have various perks like live streams and tutorials specifically for Patreon and stuff like that. So check it out. It's a nice community with a whole bunch of talented and artistic people over there. So there's also a link to my merch store if you want to get yourself one of those nice design idea sketchbooks. I find them really useful and a great way to keep track of my projects. And the grid matrix, like I said, really helps me to draw better pictures. So get yourself 1 or 2 of those. I think they're really useful. And then finally, there's a link to my ebooks. We're currently working on my 2025 tutorial guide, which has information about all of the videos from 2025, including links to the videos. You can currently get my 2024 and 2023 one at the link down below, and each one has a page for each of the videos during that year. So they'll include things like a picture of the sketch that I drew before I did the project, a picture of the final product, a list of materials you need to make the item, difficulty rating, and some notes I made about the project, like did I find it difficult, easy, which parts of it would I change if I was to do it again, did I learn something new from the project. Typically I learn something new every time I do something different, so I try to share that with you as well. So it's a nice way to have a whole bunch of projects right at your fingertips, and a great way to support my channel. So thank you in advance if you choose to get any of those. All right, well, thanks for watching today. Take care. Happy silversmithing.